YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Avatar Sentai DonBrothers Episode 3. So this episode primarily focuses on Don Momotaro and Oni's sister running around having delivery adventures together and her finally discovering the truth. But before we do all that, we do our little intro to Saru Brother. Similar to last week with Kiji Brother, we do this kind of focus on him, kind of figure out who he is as a person, and talk about how he first became a ranger. We did meet him last week, but this is our more proper focus on him, where we discover, he's basically this free spirit that helps people with these really specifically weird problems, and he's never had a real job, I guess. Saru Brothers never had a real job in his life. Now we're just wasting time, Jerry. After we get that focus, we see him first becoming a ranger and helping these kids out when they lose their ball by transforming, and we got our individual transformation for him. And then we head back to Oni's sister, who gets a delivery at her house. Of course, it's Don Momotaro. I was gonna make a joke about how he's the only delivery guy in the area, but then, of course, the whole plot revolves around there being an evil version of him. Not like an evil version, just another delivery guy, like this one. He's basically initially kind of treating him crappy, like, well, you can deliver the box, get out of here. And then she's like, wait a minute, I need you to do the dishes for me, because she's like shirking her chores, I guess. And this is where we get a little bit of intro to her mom. I guess a little bit of that dynamic too, because her mom's a cop, and she arrests Momotaro because she believes him to be the Black Bear thief. Because the Black Bear delivery service, which is the evil version of the Polar Bear delivery service, has somebody that's been stealing lamps, which is oddly specific, and they describe it later as because it steals the light and happiness from a home. Okay, she's a pretty bad cop. I mean, she kind of treated her daughter bad too, because it kind of highlights that she doesn't believe her daughter about the plagiarism stuff. But I don't know why, if he was the thief, would he wash the dishes and stick around? Unless he was the wet bandits. That puts them on the case, and she wants to follow him around on his deliveries to find out who Don Momotaro is, because she still doesn't know it's him, even when they're at a restaurant, and he's about to tell her, and then she's like, no, your name is Polar Bear. And it was kind of amusing, because she's been basically just so oblivious to the fact that he's been right in front of her this whole time. But at the same time, I was almost annoyed, like, okay, this is funny, I like that we have this interesting slow burn dynamic, but, like, don't let this go on for too long. And luckily later, she does find out who he is when she finds his dropped name tag. But we get to see them go around, get a little bit of their dynamic building, learn that he's a pacifist that doesn't want to punch any people. I guess only when you're not morphed. Because I guess he's technically punching monsters, but when you're punching the humanoid characters, they're technically humans. And he also later hits Oni's sister, so I don't know how that works. But it's kind of a nice intro to a little bit of our dynamic and our first chance to get to see the cast actually start to interact. Because later they do run into Saru Brother at one of the jobs, and he's the one that talks about why they would steal lamps, and we see a little bit of that dynamic. We are also introed into our third human villain, which is the female one, and she shows up and talks to the monster of the week, who is this delivery guy who's stealing lamps, and his monster is based off of Lupin Ranger, and then she shows up at the end, but we'll get to that in a second. When Momotaro drops Oni's sister off for the day, he discovers the culprit, and they follow him and end up in the fight, and we get to see Don Momotaro's first individual transformation, at least I believe it is. And it's kind of funny, because even though he transforms right in front of them, then all of a sudden he's gone, and she's like, where did he go? And he still has to make a dramatic entrance. And the rest of the team shows up, and I think it's the first time we have all five of them together, even though we didn't really see Kiji Brother and Inoue Brothers human actors this episode. And we get a ToQger change, and we get a cool finisher and all that stuff. And then at the end, though, is when the female villain shows up and fights Don Momotaro, and she takes out the monster of the week. She's like, you have failed this city. Except she's a girl, so it's like, you failed this city. And then she sends him to the Phantom Zone, and that upsets Don Momotaro, and they fight. And then at the end, when I almost said Inoue sister, when Oni's sister finally realizes who he is, she swears fealty to him, but then he laughs and kicks her out of the way too. And he starts saying, it's a festival! And he starts laughing and attacking the others. I don't know what that's about. I did find it kind of funny that he tossed her aside just like the others did, like as a running bit, but I don't know what's going on with him. I'm not sure. It's kind of an interesting cliffhanger. Also, before I forget to mention it, during the episode when they were chasing the bad guy, he used the Don Momotaro altar again, which is, again, a tiny robot, and then he transforms into the ToQger form, which is the figure I just recently covered, and uses it to slash the tires. Again, when we got early details about these, that they were going to be sort of side mech replacements in terms of the toy line, I didn't expect them to be these small little things. And, I'll link to my review of the toy, which isn't very good quality, at least the ToQger one. The main mecha is fine, but I don't know. You guys know I have mixed thoughts on the legacy stuff anyway, but I think this could have been so much cooler. I mentioned this in the review, but instead of it being this weird transformation where it transforms into someone that replaced its amputeed legs with ToQger, It could have been cool to have like a little mini robot form for each Sentai they have. Like the Don Momotaro robot is Don Momotaro, and then you have a robot ToQger form, robot Zyuohger form. I don't know. I think that could have been cooler. I just think it's kind of lame-ish. But anyway, not lame-ish though was the episode. I really liked this episode. I think it was maybe the strongest episode in terms of like the structure. I really enjoyed last week's, but I felt the structure was a little over the place. But this one I thought was much more tightly structured because we kind of start with Saru Brother, we get that out of the way, and then he ends up coming back later, so it ties it together. And I like the continued slow build of the team and their dynamic. Like I said, I was a little bit annoyed when I thought they were going to drag the Momotaro thing on too long, but they seemed to go with it nicely. And again, I just really do appreciate this slow build of the team, getting to know them individually, and slowly see them coming together and building the dynamic. Not to mention, I really like that in the last few weeks, it's only been 3, but we've had a Monster of the Week every week, but yet there's also been kind of a serialized thread run throughout it as we intro the like human villains and stuff. Like this episode kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and the appearance of the female villain kind of felt like it just continued through line of the more serialized story. And also when that guy gets sent to the Phantom Zone, the Lupin gear appears in front of Zenkaiser Black, which is, of course, Kaito. I didn't think it was him, but I just mentioned last week how wouldn't it be funny if that wasn't Kaito since we never saw him morph, but this pretty much confirms it in case there was any doubts that were needlessly cast by me. But I just really like that. I'm waiting to see when the show's going to disappoint me. It's not perfect. There's still stuff that annoys me, some still overly silly stuff that annoys me as well. But I've been enjoying it so far. Like, it's had a good energy. I like the cast. I like the slow build. And like I said, in the few episodes so far, I like that we've had kind of a combination of episodic and a little bit serialized. Not like serialized, but like breakfast serialized. But overall, this was a good episode. I would give it a 4 out of 5. What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.